The Nigerian Air Force has just carried out a major airstrike against terrorist positions in Borno State, and the details coming out of this operation are absolutely significant for understanding the ongoing fight against insurgency in the northeast. What we're seeing here is a coordinated military action that targeted what military sources are calling the Timbuktu Triangle, an area that has become notorious as a stronghold for terrorist groups operating in that region. The strike happened recently, and according to official reports, the Air Force deployed combat aircraft to hit these terrorist camps with precision strikes that were designed to neutralize the threat and create safe passage for ground troops who would then move in to secure the area. Now, let's talk about what the Timbuktu Triangle actually is, because understanding this geography is crucial to grasping why this operation matters so much. This area has been a thorn in the side of military operations for quite some time, serving as a hideout and operational base for insurgents who have been terrorizing communities and launching attacks against both civilian populations and military installations. The Nigerian Air Force, working with intelligence gathered from various sources, identified specific locations within this triangle where terrorists had established camps, and these became the primary targets for the airstrikes. What makes this operation particularly noteworthy is the level of coordination involved, because these weren't just random bombings, they were calculated strikes meant to achieve specific military objectives. The airstrikes were part of a broader strategy to degrade the operational capacity of these terrorist groups and to clear the way for ground forces to move in and establish control over areas that have been under terrorist influence. Military sources indicate that the strikes were successful in hitting their intended targets, with reports suggesting that significant damage was done to terrorist infrastructure in the area. This includes weapons caches, training facilities, and the camps themselves where these groups had been planning and launching their operations. The idea here is not just to hit them once and leave, but to create conditions that make it impossible for them to regroup and continue their activities in that location. So, if you're finding this breakdown helpful and you want to stay updated on important developments like this across Nigeria, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss an update on stories that matter. What's particularly important about this operation is the timing and the strategic thinking behind it. The military has been working on intelligence gathering for weeks, possibly months, to ensure that when they struck, they would hit the right targets and maximize the impact while minimizing risks to civilian populations in nearby areas. Borno State has been at the center of the insurgency crisis for over a decade now, and operations like this represent the ongoing efforts to restore peace and security to communities that have suffered immensely under terrorist violence. The clearing of the Timbuktu Triangle is meant to open up routes that ground troops can use to push deeper into areas where terrorists have been operating with relative freedom. And this ground phase of the operation is just as critical as the airstrikes themselves. Now, we have to understand that while airstrikes can do significant damage to terrorist infrastructure, the real test comes with holding the ground afterward. That's where the coordination between the Air Force and ground troops becomes absolutely essential. The airstrikes soften the targets, destroy their capabilities, and force them to scatter, but ground forces need to move in quickly to consolidate those gains, establish military presence, and prevent the terrorists from simply relocating to another area and starting all over again. This is the pattern we've seen in counter-insurgency operations, not just in Nigeria, but around the world, and it's why this kind of joint operation is so important. The Nigerian military has been learning and adapting its tactics over the years, and operations like this show a level of sophistication and strategic planning that goes beyond just responding to attacks. For the communities in Borno State who have lived under the constant threat of terrorist violence, news of operations like this brings a complex mix of hope and anxiety. Hope because every successful strike against these groups weakens their ability to terrorize innocent people, but anxiety because military operations in their areas also mean they have to deal with the immediate disruptions and dangers that come with active combat zones. The military has stated that measures are taken to protect civilian lives during these operations, but the reality of warfare means that communities often bear a heavy burden, regardless of how careful the planning is. What people in these areas want more than anything is lasting peace, the ability to return to their farms, send their children to school without fear, and rebuild the lives that have been shattered by years of conflict. The broader context here is that this operation in the Timbuktu Triangle is part of ongoing military campaigns across the northeast region aimed at completely dismantling terrorist networks that have plagued the area. We're talking about groups that have displaced millions of people, destroyed infrastructure, disrupted education and healthcare, and created one of the most significant humanitarian crises in West Africa. Every successful operation chips away at their capacity to continue this destruction, but as we've seen over the years, this is not a fight that will be won with a single battle or even a series of battles. It requires sustained effort, resources, intelligence gathering, and most importantly, addressing the underlying conditions that allow extremism to take root in the first place. The question many people are asking now is what comes next? Will this operation lead to a sustained period of peace in that area, or will we see the familiar pattern of terrorists regrouping elsewhere and continuing their activities? That's going to depend on several factors, including how effectively ground troops can hold the territory, how quickly humanitarian assistance and development can reach affected communities, and whether the military can maintain the pressure on remaining terrorist cells. Intelligence gathering will continue to be crucial because these groups are adaptive. They change tactics, they relocate, and they look for vulnerabilities to exploit. The Nigerian Air Force and the entire military apparatus will need to stay vigilant and continue operations to prevent any resurgence. If this information has been valuable to you and you appreciate getting these detailed breakdowns of important national events, don't forget to like this video because it really helps the channel reach more people who want to stay informed about what's happening in our country. Looking at the military's communication about this operation, there's a clear message being sent, not just to the terrorists, but to Nigerian citizens and the international community watching how the country handles its security challenges. The message is that the military remains committed to defeating insurgency and restoring normalcy to affected regions. Whether this translates to lasting results remains to be seen, but operations like the one in the Timbuktu Triangle represent significant tactical efforts in that direction. The coordination, planning, and execution of such strikes require resources, training, and commitment, and the fact that these operations continue to happen shows that despite challenges, the fight against terrorism in Nigeria's northeast is very much active and ongoing. So, what do you think about this latest military operation? Do you believe sustained airstrikes combined with ground operations are the key to finally ending the insurgency in the northeast? How can affected communities be better supported during and after these military campaigns? Drop your thoughts in the comment section below because your perspective on these issues matters and it helps create important conversations about the path forward for security and peace in our country.